On today's episode of Inside the Numbers Sports Performance Podcast, we have Coach Nate Mathis. He is the Director of Optimal Performance at Gainesville High School in Gainesville, Georgia. He's been there for 2 years now, working primarily with football, running all of their sports science, and overseeing the Optimal Performance Department, along with Director of Strength Conditioning Coach Taylor Williams. He has previous stops as the Director of Strength Conditioning at Grayson High School in Georgia, Walker Valley High School in Tennessee, and Jefferson High School in Florida. He also has experience working in the SEC as a strength conditioning intern at Ole Miss. Today's episode was basically a snapshot of how Gainesville High School football operates like a Power 4 football program. They have unbelievable facilities and unbelievable resources and do things at a crazy high level. In this episode, you can listen to Nate go over their philosophy of training and usage of their technology, such as their catapult vector systems and their perch camera-based barbell velocity tracking units. Let's welcome to the show, Coach Nate Mathis. Welcome to Inside the Numbers, the Rock Daisy Sports Performance Podcast with your host, Coach Cody Hughes. Join us to unlock the secrets behind athletic performance as we break down the metrics and transform your collected data into powerful, actionable insights. Tune in for exclusive interviews with top coaches and professionals who are revolutionizing their training programs with data. If you love what you hear, please share it on X, Instagram, and YouTube, and tag us at RockDaisyAMS. So what season are you in at Gainesville now? Because I know you've been a few places.
Yeah, this is year two.
Gotcha, year two.
I got to come in January of 2023, so I kind of got the whole off season with them, which, in our role is awesome, not having to come in June and get started from there the way, I've had to do before. So having that off season was big.
Yeah, no doubt. I've been there. I know I got the job here in May. Whenever I came here, and it's almost like that first season is almost like year zero, like you're installing. So you got that chance.
Because I remember at Grayson, coming in the first week of summer in June, and you're spending the summer learning the kids' names.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, okay, where were they at? What had they done the last 6 months? And it's a challenge. So getting in January was huge.
Yeah, no doubt.
You get to start from the ground up with them.
Yeah, for sure. So there's two of you guys on staff, which is extremely unique. So you've got you and Coach, is it Taylor Williams? Is that right?
Yes.
That's his name. Okay. First thing I want you to do is explain. First off, it's pretty unique and unheard of to have two strength coaches on staff at a high school that's responsible for that. I'm lucky enough that in my building I have that too. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear more about y'all's relationships and roles and how you guys want it, because it's cool hearing for having a full-time high school strength coach in the first place. Y'all have two. So what is that relationship like, and what are y'all's roles like, and how you guys work together?
Yeah, so basically I work primarily with football, baseball, track. But I'm inside the programming of everything through the athletic department. And, when we talk about optimal performance, it's really 4 areas. And it was kind of the dream of where to build a high school program. It was, for so many years, it was, you got an hour in the weight room, a few days a week, and then they go play their sport. And that's kind of where we work. You may get a little field work time in, but we kind of wanted to grow it into, hey, let's try to start implementing some sports science, let's get some GPSs, get some VBTs. Nutrition with the supplements, and we're fortunate now we have an athletics cafeteria that we're able to feed the guys, or really all the athletes. We're able to feed all the athletes dinner, and we'll have leftovers from that. So if we have any weight gain athletes, we can make them plates. We know kind of how many calories are going into their system as far as what we're giving them. And then having a close relationship with the athletic trainers and the team doctors to be able to, when injuries are inevitable, you're going to have them, and being able to work closely with them and rehab the kids the right way, put a plan together. Like I said, work with those guys, have an open dialogue. And so I kind of oversee all of that. And, it's a lot of moving parts. Taylor does a phenomenal job. He works with me with football as well. He's a little bit more on the floor throughout the entire day. He'll work with our other sports that come in. We're the only athletes throughout the day. So the larger sports with more people on them, they'll have their own period. And then some of the smaller sports, they can combine them. So we do have a larger space, so we're able to kind of get multiple teams in there. and get them going. And if it's a situation like, I know when baseball comes in, I'll go out and I'll have baseball on one side, he'll have wrestling on one side. They're two larger groups, and we'll kind of work together on that.
Gotcha. So what's the school schedule looking like for you guys? Are you guys like on a block schedule or alternating block?
We're on periods, so we have
Period schedule. Okay.
7 periods a day.
I gotcha. So you see the same groups 5 days a week for what is it, 35, 40 minutes of training time?
Yeah, it turns into about 40 minutes.
Okay.
By the time they get in, get dressed out, get over to the weight room, we kind of get everything explained to get rolling. Football has a little different. They've got a little different schedule because we bring them in early. So, and that starts in the off season all the way through January. They'll come in the off season at 7 a.m. School starts here at 8:15. So we're able to kind of get them before school and through first period. So we've got a pretty big window for those guys. Off season, we're able to get some run in. We're able to get the lift in, whatever else. If as they progress closer to spring ball, if the coaches want to meet with them, they get meeting time. So we're a little more flexible with what we can do.
So you've got say that first period goes from 8:15 to what, about 9 o'clock?
Yeah, we have to, if we're lifting or doing anything where we've got to get them showered, we have to try to end around 40. About 40ish, let them go shower. And then our cafeteria staff, which actually comes up here and works in our athletics cafeteria, they'll hold breakfast for them. So we're able to send them down afterwards, and they can get the breakfast that the rest of the students got before school, and really quick, and then get the second period.
Oh man, that is just tremendous. I mean, I can't overstate how important that piece is. Being able to feed your kids every single day after practice or after training. And I'm just trying to do this math, Coach. So you've got an hour. You start at 7 a.m., go all the way up to about 8:40. You're looking at an hour and 40 minutes, 5 days a week, like capable, right? So you're looking at 60 minutes plus 40 minutes, 100 minutes. I mean, you get 500 minutes a week to train these guys, in the off season. That's tremendous. That's unbelievable. Not everybody gets that type of ability to use 500 minutes. Now, let's talk a little bit of off season, because in season, I understand you guys are probably on the field, getting some field work and practice in the morning. You're doing film work, probably catching a short lift, whatever. But let's talk January. Let's talk winter. Like, if you're training in the off season and you've got those 500 minutes, okay, does that include in the mornings because I don't now, let me pause there, because you can clarify this for me, because I know Georgia is different than Alabama as far as how often you guys can do football stuff in the off season. It's like in Alabama, we get 10 weeks of 2 hours a week with our guys. What does it lay out like in winter? So say like January up until spring ball, what would a week look like?
So as far as like the rules in the state of Georgia, we can't have football. There can't be any like football practicing going on. So they can still, we have our entire football staff in there during first period with us. So they can work with their position groups as far as, and they're a big help to us in how we're able to do our speed program. And especially when we start getting into the change of direction stuff and more specific things that we do for the position groups, they get to work with their position group, and they're helping us put it together. Hey, what do you need for your position group? So they can work with them like that. We just can't football out to spring ball. And do anything like that. So as far as the off season, we get back in January, and really for us, the planning piece starts as soon as the season's done. We'll take December to kind of evaluate where we were, what did we not like, what did we like, what do we think went well, didn't well, start combing through data from the season, and then talk to the coaches. Hey, was there anything physically your position group had that you felt like if we improved it, you would have a better chance of pulling off what you want to pull off? So we'll kind of put all that together, and then I'll make an outline of the year. So starting in January all the way through the state championship game of here's kind of how we'll look at the school calendar, where do our breaks fall, and just kind of build around that, and taking it all the way through the state championship game. So once we get that planned out, January, when we come back, first week, we just start back, Wednesday or Thursday, we'll do team meetings and stuff like that. And our head coach, Josh Nibble, he'll get up and talk and kind of lay the foundation and the expectations and standards for the season. I'll get up and present what we're doing as far as where we need to go, kind of, hey, what's this first cycle look like? And I'm big on educating the players. It's not hey, do this because I said so. Here's why we're doing it, because, it wasn't like as players we were going to argue with our coaches, but I know for me personally, if I knew why behind what we were doing, Like that's what I wanted to know the why. So, and I know
Right.
a lot of our players do too. So we educate them on what we're doing. We, go through top to bottom, sleep hygiene. And I know there's some of this stuff that we can't control. We can't control unless they're sleeping. I can't control what they're eating and doing outside of here. But we educate them on, hey, this is what it should look like. And I know, for a lot of our guys, we'll come in and say, I want to gain weight. Okay, I'm eating a lot. What does that mean? So we download an app on their phone. They track their calories. So we kind of educate them on that. You're saying you're eating a lot, but you're eating about 2,000 calories. Some of them not even that during the day. And start going through, hey, here's some foods that we need to eat. We're going to give you this. Here's some things that are affordable that you can go home. Your parents go to the grocery store, things you can pick up. And we kind of talk through the purge system again, because we'll have new guys coming in and talk about, hey, this is how you use the iPad. This is what we're looking for. This is what a gold rep is. This is what a blue rep is. Really going to base zero with them and talking them through that. Hey, when you're looking at, when we show you catapult data, this is what this means. And we're keeping it simple as far as the metrics we're showing them, but educate them that first week. So the first full week we're back, we start our GPP phase. So reestablish range of motion, reestablish movement patterns. So really going back to what exercises, what tools are we going to use to get what we need to done this year, and what movement patterns do we have to have? What is the base that we have to have? And we need to come up with ideas and ways to make sure that foundation is there, so we're not having to stop in March to go back and reteach stuff. And then really trying to get a work capacity built up, because when we end the season, hopefully in December, you're looking at a 3-week period at least that they're not doing anything. We're not opening the weight room. I'm big on that. We're not going to open the weight room.
Yeah, they got to get away.
Yeah,
even
get away.
If you play 15 games, I mean, like, you got to get away, man, for sure.
Yeah, and we've got a fall scrimmage game, 2 bye weeks, and I mean, you're looking at, it's a long season. So get out of there. And so we're having to get that work capacity built back up, taking them back through the routine and all that. So we'll take about 2 weeks at least on that. And when I say I put together the outline, I mean, it's an outline. If we get to a point where I feel like, hey, we need to stay in this a little longer, or hey, we're ready to go, let's move. It changes. It's not in pen by any means. We change it all the time. After that, we're going to spend a majority of our time in the weight room. Like this past year, had a pretty young team coming back, lost a pretty big senior class, young team. Hey, we've got to put some size on these guys. We got to get a strength base built up. So I tell our staff all the time, athletes like a pie. There's only so much you're going to take from that until they run out of gas. So, we can't, we're not going to take them out and run them and do this. And plus it's, 28 degrees outside. We're not doing that. So we're going to take, if it's not too cold, we'll take them up to our indoor pavilion. It's open on the side, so it doesn't really shield you from the cold a whole lot, but we'll take them up there and start teaching some basic mechanics, just from a movement standpoint. And when I say basic, I mean, it's body positioning, knee drive, dorsiflexion. What does this mean? And take them through like activation stations. What do our activation stations look like? And use that to still reps at, work at reestablishing those movement patterns, kind of still using that same GPP mindset on those. And then bring them to the weight room. We're going to spend a good bit of time in the weight room. So we're we run kind of like blocks. So the way our weight room is set up, we've got really 3 sections of it. One side has the perches, one side's a little more open. We can, if we want to spread out and do some different things, it's a little more flexible. And then we got one side with jammer arms, cable machines, stuff that's typically a little more upper body section. So they'll work out the bigs, the mids, and then the skill, and they'll have, at that time of year, 14 to 16 minutes per block to rotate through. We really take our time with that and try to get them some volume, try to make sure there's rest time built in to where we're not trying to tempo them in January. So and we'll run that for about 4 to 8 weeks, just kind of filling out where we are as a team. And then around March, that's when we'll really start getting on the field more and implement our, our speed program. So
Gotcha.
Linear, our change of direction day, and about mid-March, we'll cut down to 3 days. So then Tuesday, say Tuesday's linear, and then Thursdays are change of direction. Change of direction is going to be more predetermined that time of year. Teaching them, hey, this is how we want you to change direction, because a lot of them will just turn and run and don't think about it. Hey, this is how you
spin their feet. Yeah,
spin their feet. I mean, it's sloppy. So, hey, this is when you open up and want the knee drop, the toe up, and snapping the leg around, and kind of what that looks like, and taking them through those. And then as we go a little deeper in, we'll move into reactive stuff, and we'll get with the coaches and we'll start making the drills mimic a little more what they're going to see on the field. And that's where when we're on a 4-day split, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday. Coach Nibble, he'll bring speakers in sometimes, or he'll have like a mindset training. They'll come in and do that. We'll bring them in a little later, let them sleep in. Then when we go down to a 3-day split, that Wednesday we'll start out with mindset and then just come into the weight room. And then Tuesday, Thursday is devoted to being on the field. And then Monday, Friday, we're just in the weight room. We also in March will draft teams. So the kids will come in, they'll pick 10 captains, the 12 captains, they'll draft their teams, and it covers everything, what they're doing with us, what they're doing in the classroom, community service, off the field, fundraisers. So it's really that first part of getting your team together. And once we get into March, after we get done with our speed work on the field, we'll work competitions. And that's a fun time of year. And that's what Taylor, he's so good, so much more creative than I am. We'll identify, hey, we want these, when we're doing the competition, we do want the kids to have fun. This is what we need to get done. We want this to be a reactive change of direction. We want this to be, maybe a loaded carry. We want, whatever it may be. Maybe this is a linear station. Maybe this is more of a curve run. And then how about it? Throw out ideas. Let the interns, whoever, throw out ideas. There's no wrong ones. Just get creative with it and have fun. The kids are getting really good work in. They're getting points for their teams. They're having fun with it, but they're also getting work in that they don't know they're getting. Gotcha. And we'll run that all the way up to spring ball.
Gotcha. Well, man, that sounds like a college setup is what it sounds like to me. I mean, you don't get a whole lot of places other than your big schools that have an opportunity to do that. And you're very blessed to have a facility that allows you to do those type things. I mean, I'm just speaking of that facility, right? If you guys want to go look at it, the best place to go look at it, in my opinion, is Simply Faster's Facility Finders. They do a really great job. I think John did you guys a little write-up and has some pictures and a video of your guys' facility. I mean, it's pretty much brand new. I mean, you've got 28 racks. Like you said, you've got Perch VBT. I mean, you guys got Rogers Pendulum, which I'm really a big fan of. I think they get a ton of, you get a lot of bang for your buck out of a smaller square foot blueprint, having that half rack or that double half rack system that you guys have. I mean, huge fan. The elevated dish racks are awesome with the DC blocks underneath, and some really good design. And you just don't see this very often. I mean, it's really cool. But I want to know on the challenging side of things of having such a huge facility. Like what's challenging about having such a nice, huge facility to, one, make sure it runs the right way, thinking about, sight lines and having coaches in the right spot. If you don't have the right preparation, I'm assuming this could be a logistical nightmare.
Absolutely. Well, I know just from my standpoint, one of the most challenging things for me is I have a tendency to get on the perch side and stay on the perch side. And, you get in there and the strength coach in you comes out and you're over there coaching technique and you're working with a few racks and you're playing with the data and you're talking and you're like, well, for 15 minutes, I haven't seen the rest of the room. So I have to constantly remind myself to do a good job of moving around, circulating, going down there. We've got our middle school strength coaches and that's another thing too. We get our eighth graders, our rising eighth graders, they get to come in January. So we get them leading up to the summer, which is huge. But our middle school strength coaches, they'll have first period PE or weight training, whatever they label it as down there. So they're actually up there with us, and they're doing a similar workout to what we're doing conceptually, but regress movement. So I have to go down there and make sure, show face down there, coach, talk to those guys, be present, make sure we're moving, make sure as a staff, because we have our football coaches in there, and our football coaches do a great job. They're not strength coaches. They're like you throw me in the in a quarterback indie. Like, I have to go down there and make sure that they have the support that they need. If they need help, if they need something, questions or whatever. So, that's definitely a challenging piece, and just the setup of it. We have to be set up and ready to go when they get in here so we can be efficient with our time. We can't spend 20 minutes going over, hey, this is what it needs to be set up, and letting the players set it up. So it's ready to go. When they come in, we go over the workout and we roll. So that takes time and it takes manpower. It takes us getting interns. We've got a good partnership with the University of North Georgia that we get guys that come in and help us out with that. And because if it was just me, it wouldn't happen. There's no way.
Right. Yeah, man, that's awesome. I mean, you're definitely operating like a staff, that's for sure. And seeing what you guys are doing is next level. So let's dive in a little bit deeper on some details of some things. Obviously, one of the big thing that's one of the big pieces of tech that's come into high school football specifically is GPS. You know, if you look back 10 years ago, you would have thought like that's something that's super high tech that you only see in the SEC, Power 5, in the NFL. Now that it's come down to and kind of normalized and come down, they've made this tech available. From what I've researched with you, I know you've been working with this for a while now. Like you've been working with GPS at a couple other stops too. So I want to know what you've learned. Like I want to hear your journey with GPS specifically, kind of like how you started with it, what you learned along the way. And because there's a lot of coaches that are buying these things, man. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of people buying tech that have no idea why they're buying it other than they think they have to have it from either like, you know, making their program attractive standpoint, thinking they're going to help their kids get recruited, just having it to have it, you know, and hey, they've got these things. We want our kids to feel big time, but really not getting an application from it. So I want to hear your journey with it and what you've learned along the way and how you're applying it today.
I'm going to start off by saying the more I dive into it, every year you think you get more confident with it, but the more you see, the more unsure I get. I'm like,
get more questions.
Am I doing this right? There's more questions, and we got the vectors this year with the live data on the sidelines and everything. And I've got more information coming in, and I know what to do with. So
right.
But it started in 2014 at Ole Miss, and we got there. I think we had 20 Zephyr units.
Wow, and, Zephyr! I haven't heard that name in a while.
I had never seen anything like it. I was like, what is this? And they're, you know, the coaches were going in there, you know, the interns were kind of popping their head in, like, what are they doing? You know, they downloaded, they're printing out these reports and thought it was so cool. But then you move on, you go back to Division III ball and, you know, high school ball, and you're like, okay, that's a Power 5 thing, you know, we're not going to have that. And then you started seeing it pop up. And I remember having conversations with my wife. It was like, I cannot imagine being able to have this in high school. Like this would be unbelievable. Well, at Grayson, one of our coaches went and spoke at the Glacier Clinic in Atlanta. And at the time, Catapult was doing this deal where they would give you 10 units for a year and all that. And he came back in, and I don't even know if he knew what they were. He was like, hey, you interested in these like Catapult units? I was absolutely. So whatever we got to do, let's get them. And so we ended up getting them, ran those for a year. We only had 10, so it was 5 on the offensive skill, 5 on the defensive skill. And I can sit here and say, hey, we were monitoring this, monitoring that. Really, I was gathering data.
You can't really do that in year one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, I know what these other schools are telling me. I can call these guys at the college level, and they're telling me these player loads this day, whatever, but I'm still getting comfortable with what I'm looking at. And we're taking it. We got them, I think, in July. So we got some padded camps, got maybe a 7-on-7 in there or something. And then really just gathered data throughout the year. And that was a year of just learning for me. Hey, this is what gets this load. This is kind of what we want to look for. If we label this a high day, what does that really mean? If it's a low day, medium day, what does that mean? So spent a couple of years doing that. And then when we got here, one of the first questions was, hey, we've got all this stuff. They just put the perch in. What do you need? And we need catapults. So we bought 40 Cat 1s. And my first year here was the first year we were able to really dive into it. And I feel like apply what we knew. We kind of knew what the games were going to give us. So that took the guesswork out of how we needed to build them up, what a high day was, what a medium day, a low day was, kind of what practices needed to give us throughout the week. And, you know, the biggest thing is you can go to any fall camp at, college level, pro level, whatever. And then when the injuries happen, or those are high acute spikes at camp. And that's what we want to avoid, especially in spring ball and then going into fall camp. We don't want them just getting shocked. Now, there's an element to it when they put the pads on for the first time. It's
inevitable.
It's just different. But we want to build them up as best we can to where they try to go as seamlessly as possible into that. So we have a plan from, January, we want our loads to look like this, February, March, April, all the way up into spring ball. So we're not just getting this crazy acute spike. Then obviously it gives you top speed. That's cool. Kids love it, posted on social media and all that. But we use it for how many max velocity, how many exposures above 90% are we getting per week? And 2 years ago, I had heard everything from you needed 1 to 2, 3 to 4. I'd heard all the way up to 8 to 12. So we just started experimenting with some different things. based on some of the journals and some of the research that we had read and some of the data that we were getting back, we kind of fell into that 3 to 4. And we felt good about it. So our skills and mids are getting 3 to 4 exposures per week through in season and everything. And our bigs are 1 to 2.
Does this include game as well? Like if you're looking at, let's say Friday's game day, going all the way to to Thursday of the following week, is that including the game, or you're trying to get those exposures outside of gameplay?
We're getting those exposures from Monday to Thursday.
Got it. Okay.
We Thursday when we come in before our mock game, we've got like a little speed. I hate to say speed session. We're not like doing speed work, but they're coming in and we'll warm them up, they'll back up in speed lines, or we call them their speed lines, to do their speed sequence, and we'll go through like a little linear speed sequence that's kind of slow to fast, and it builds up into 1 30-yard sprint. The 1 30-yard sprint, and the kids love it. We do like a waterfall deal, so they'll line up, they'll space out, they'll try to catch each other, and it's the effort, the intensity is awesome. And they've actually really bought in, because when we print the reports out and give them to our coaches each day, and we practice in the morning, so we have meetings in the afternoons in season. So coaches get the reports, they start going over with it. The play it gets competitive. So it's like having the perch in the weight room. But you'll see the players like the bigs, if they have like a 2-3 minute gap or something in between a session, you'll look down there and see them running across the field to try to get that exposure in. So they've really bought into it, and they do a great job with that. But we were tracking that, playing around with the energy, the calories, kind of what are we burning, kind of, and tying that in here where we have meals. Hey, kind of this is what we kind of need to put back in their system. And then we got into A cell, D cell, and that was where, fortunately, our head coach, being from Hoover, playing in Alabama, he has a good relationship with those guys. Got to go spend some time with them. And talking to those guys over there, they were talking about how they were taking different metrics, playing around with them, trying to come up with other metrics and stuff like that. So it kind of got our brain spinning. And I was like, there's got to be something with A cell, D cell that we can look at and determine, because we're starting. You always have those guys come in and talk about knee pain. The front of my knee's hurting. They start getting tendonitis and all that. It's like, well, it's hamstring related. What can we do with this? So we develop this thing. It's super simple. It's a little formula. We put their A cell and D cell in every single day and take an average, and we get a D cell index. And we kind of got it rated, every 10 that it drops, 1.0, if they're D cell on the same meters per second that they're accelerating at, all right, we're good. They're fine. That's where we want them. And then as it drops in increments of 10, we put them on like our injury risk deal. So we really dove into that, and then kind of building off that and taking their approach when we flag guys. And then this is not just one day. If we go out there and just have a linear speed day, their A cell is going to be through the roof, and the D cell is not going to be very high. So we don't look at that. We just take like a 2-3 week average and kind of look at it where it is, and really focusing on those days that they're out there playing football, because they're not thinking about it, they're just going.
Right.
And we'll take them. If we flag guys, I'll bring them in, and they'll do split jump test on the perch, and we'll see what is their power output with each leg. If it's greater than 5%, then we start looking at, okay, what do we need to do to bring this back up? We get over 10%. That's how many sets is kind of what we're going to prescribe volume wise to get this built back up. And then we identify, maybe, but what is the issue? Because I forgot to talk about this earlier. In January, February, we put together deficiency sheets on all the players, and that's where Coach Williams and I'll kind of walk around when they're going through some of their work on the field, as far as their activation stations, and especially once we start getting more into some of the speed stations that the coaches are running, and we can kind of see, hey, what's this kid got going on, and we'll take a few weeks to do that, write notes down, look at deficiencies we may have in the team that we're seeing a lot of, and then individual players, especially like our high rep guys, and we'll put a deficiency sheet for them down, and we can then, if there's something especially that's glaring, like, hey, we got to get this fixed, we'll adjust their workout. Something in their workout, maybe something, they got their primary lift, and then we got something else going over here. Hey, instead of this, whatever else is doing, I want you doing this. And so that D cell index that we looked at really helped us, at taking it and, like I said, put it on the perch and testing their legs, seeing, hey, is this a bilateral issue? Is this a unilateral issue? Kind of getting ahead of it. Like I said, you can't ever prevent things, but trying to mitigate it as best we can. And we had really good results from it. Not really any soft tissue issues. Most of our injuries were, stuff broke. So we got into that. And then, at the end of the year, was kind of like, hey, I've given you all we can give you with these Cat 1s. If we really want to, buy into this and take it to the next level, working closely with Catapult, we had been back and forth about trying to get the vectors, and our administration doing what they always do. Coach Adam Lindsay, our athletic director, does a phenomenal job giving us what we need, pitched the idea to him, and we got 24 of them. We got them in January, so that
So
allowed
what
us
what does the vector system give you now versus what the Cat 1s are giving you?
It's just a lot more in-depth metrics. So just for example, I remember the first time I clicked on heart rate. When you're looking at the reports and click on heart rate, there's like 12 or 14 metrics that drop down just under heart rate. You get overwhelmed really quick. We look at, it gives us like an explosive efforts, and there's sports scientists at Catapult. They did a great job on board, and when we were talking to them, it's like, hey, this is kind of what you want to look for. In game, this is what an explosive percent will look like for the receiver group, for the DB group. For the OLDL, we look at explosive efforts, and heart rate. We'll start watching, especially in the offseason, watch their heart rate in relation to their player load, and start getting an idea. Hey, are they getting in shape? Early on, the heart rate's always up no matter what.
Right.
And then we'll start seeing it travel with that player load as we have our high and low days. So still playing around with a lot of those metrics, and because we do give information back to the coaches. They're pretty sound on the, say, 4 or 5 different metrics we give them from the Cat 1s, and we still give it to them from the vector system, but not trying to overload them with too much. But
For sure.
it's still very much a work in progress and learning of how to implement that, because I don't want to just be taking in data, just taking data. We'll make sure, hey, is this giving us something useful that we can use, that we can use to adjust our training?
So talk about the relationship you've built with Coach over time, once you had that baseline of data to help program practice. Because I'm hearing the value of the strength coach, from NFL, Power 5, and now at pretty big, resourceful high schools, that now that you've got enough units, you got enough manpower to be able to look at GPS and start planning practice. I ask you this because, like, for example, at my level, where we've got 48 guys, and if you look at majority of our team is going to be played by about 20 to 22 guys who play most of our snaps. Ain't a whole lot of wiggle room at practice with 48 guys. Yep. You got to do what you got to do. So, like, we ran GPS and saw, our coach who's been doing this for a long time didn't need numbers to just see it. And I was like, man, look at the waves of yardage we're running and things that already looks pretty good to set our guys up for success. But it's a whole different animal when you guys have 90, 100, 120, 150 kids that are at practice. I want to hear about the relationship you have with Coach, and how, because having a strength coach come in and tell Coach he needs to change his practice plan, I can imagine that could be a difficult conversation if that relationship isn't established.
No.
And so establishing that relationship first, and then second, just a very brief overview of how that can maneuver or give you guys just more data points when programming practice.
Yeah. So, first of all, I always say, I've told Coach Nibbett this, he could be a college strength coach right now. He's not just a football guy. He's a really good strength coach. He was at the college level for, when he first started his career out. So his support in what we do has been unmatched. It's always an open conversation. Hey, what are we seeing? What do we need to do? All that. And he's really receptive of that. And I try to make sure when I go to him with something, it's something that I feel pretty strongly about. As far as like his practices too, his practices weren't too far off. He already had kind of an idea about, he was ahead. It wasn't just, hey, Monday, Tuesday are really high, Wednesday's a little lower, Thursday's just a walkthrough, and then we're lulling them to sleep into the game.
Right. That's the traditional model, right? That's like what traditionally we do in football. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was already kind of doing that. So it was more just hey, let's look at the loads and kind of fine tune it a little bit. Cause we'll come in, we bring them in on Sunday. They'll meet, watch the film. We take them, that's our heavy lift of the week. And we'll go do a recovery run, mobility circuit, and we're trying to get them up 30-40% of what their game load, say 100% is their game. Try to be about 30 or 40%. Monday is going to be 60 to 65. Tuesday 70 to 75. Early in the season, may get up close to 80. Tuesday's your heavier practice. And then Wednesday's no sweat Wednesday. We're going to get a quick lift in. So load-wise, we're probably up around 25%. And then Thursday we'll come out in shells, get a max velocity exposure. We'll do a little change in direction circuit that we have that we go through just to kind of prep them and get them rolling. And we'll be around 40% on Thursday, and then we go into the game. And we feel pretty good about that. Biggest thing is you talk to the kids, they say we're fresh, they love it. Playing fast on Fridays, so that's at the end of the day, that's the goal. As far as the adjustments that we make now, is really watching that live data during practice, watching it come in and seeing player load per minute, and looking at the position group. So really it's receivers that I'm concerned about. And DBs a little bit too, the guys that are running around a lot. But we're watching it, and if we see right now, pretty much the receiving group is around, say 4.5 player load per minute. And then I've got one of our starters at 7. Okay, we catch that early in practice. Like, hey, we need to I'll holler over a receiver coach. Hey, we need to back him down a little bit, and he'll get him out. He'll get somebody else in, and we'll get it cut down. We'll get ahead of it before we come in and we're like, oh my goodness, he was at like 90% today. So that's huge. And on the flip side of that, if we've got everybody's 4.5 at 5, and we've got a guy at 3, hey, we need to get him going. Yeah. And we can have those conversations. So that's just kind of in the practice, if we have our interns here, I'll send them with a radio. Hey, go over to OL, need to get this guy, tell them this, and he'll go over there and tell them, and they'll get it. So that's really probably the adjustments we make now. Our practices, we don't see a lot of surprising data at this point. We kind of know, hey, if we do this is what we're going to get. And like I said, that was coach already having a really good plan in place, kind of being ahead in how he ran things. But if there's always open conversation during the day. I mean, there's been times where maybe in camp or something like that, hey, we just watch practice, we kind of see where kids are. Hey, do you really feel like we need to go do this at the end? Do we need to cut a period? And sometimes like, nah, they're fine, go. Or yeah, we probably need to trim it up a little bit and try to get them off and get them out of here. And then we probably need to adjust the workout, or hey, instead of doing this, we're going to take them inside, turn the lights off, and get some recovery work in and do that. And he's always open to it. And he's really coming to me and asking me before I'm having to go to him and say, hey, we need to do this.
Gotcha. What do you say when you say looking at, player loads? Because, if you guys that don't really have a lot of experience with GPS, player load is pretty much a proprietary number. Sometimes it's 300, 700, 900. You don't really know. It's a combination of a lot of different things. Higher is the more stressful. What do you see in practice is something that is going to crank the player load the most?
Really, it's volume. I mean, like volume of what they're doing. So the longer the practice, the longer the periods, especially like our high, like if they're in, say an indie teach period and it's for half speed walk through teaching type stuff, it's not going to bother us too much. But when we start getting into, I always go back to like fall camp or early season when, there's a lot of heavy practices going on, a lot of contacts going on, those, let's say like an inside run period, or, really, a 7-on-7 good on good is going on. And really any type of team period when the ones and the ones are out there. The longer those go, the more volume they're getting there, the more high speed yards they're getting from the skill guys, the more we're seeing that thing just drive up. Gotcha. And high intensity cuts. So the more high intensity ACLD cells, like it's driving it up.
If a coach came to you today, let's say I was that coach, that, hey coach, I am going to get, GPS coach, my head coach is interested in getting GPS units. What advice would you give me, let's go like 2 years, because I feel like I have an idea what you're going to say for year one, but like over a 2-year period, how would I maximize? What are just a few things you would look at to start as somebody who's a newbie with a GPS?
Yeah, and I told the coaches, a lot of head coaches all the time that are asking similar questions. I always tell them, hey, year one, collect the data, see what it looks like for your team, because everyone's team is different. Here at Gainesville, at Grayson, we had them, you've got pretty large rosters. Nobody's playing both ways. You got some kids that'll, are playing some special teams and stuff like that. But it's not like, some other places I've been where the guy playing offense, defense, probably 3 special teams, it looks totally different than what you need. I can go through all these perfect scenarios and what your lows need to look like, but that's just not the world you live in. So I always say, hey, look and see what you're getting, look and see. And the biggest thing is use it that first year to get the games. See what a game is doing to your kids, because at the end of the day, a game is a game. You're going to get what you're going to get, and that's what you got to get them ready for. And learn what you're looking at. Learn a few metrics. Don't try to attack them all and be a sports scientist by the end of year one. Find a few and get good at them. Know what you're looking at, and get familiar with them. What is it telling you? How can I take this information and apply it and optimize my training, optimize my practices, and then try to have a plan going into year two to take the data that you've got and the baseline of knowledge you have from the metrics that you spent a year looking at. Okay, now how do we adjust it?
Got it. Yeah, good deal. So let's switch gears a little bit, with GPS being something that is a hot topic with tech, but so is velocity-based training. It's really starting to pop off in the high school space, whether you've got, a camera-based system like you've got with Perch, or if you've got a linear transducer system like I have with Vitruve, which I love and use every single day. I want to hear kind of your philosophy with where the velocity piece comes in. So like what you're looking for, how you're utilizing it based on set to set. Do you guys use it to auto-regulate your loads? And do you have rules in place to be able to do so? I just want to hear a little bit about how velocity-based training, how the Perch system is effective in your guys' program.
I mean, the number one thing that it does is it creates a competitive environment that way. All the data is great. I love it. I love to be able to dive into it and do that. But the number one thing it does when those kids come in there and those iPads go on, they're locked in. And you can't get that without those. Telling a kid to move the bar faster, it's like, okay, well, I feel like I am. But when you're seeing it come through and they're competing in their group and, guys have similar weight on, but one guy's moving it, at 7.5 meters a second, other guy's moving it at 6.4. Well, then there starts to be this competitive piece in there. And you start seeing guys who probably would have coasted through the workout start elevating.
Yeah,
and,
no doubt.
So the intent that it brings is awesome. I say if it does nothing else for us, it does that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we use it to auto-regulate because, I mean, when you come in, you're getting these kids that will come in. Some days they're putting 75% on the bar and shooting it up. And then other days they go home, they haven't slept, nutrition hasn't been good, they've got something going on in their personal life, they're fatigued, and they get pinned. They get stapled to the bench with it, whatever. So we use it as we're going through our warm-up sets to kind of gauge where they are. And the kids are pretty good. It's year two with it. And early in the off season when we start educating them on that, they kind of know what to look for. So, hey, if it's moving slower today and you're getting this, well, if you're at the bottom of the zone, so say if we're in our accelerated speed zone where, 5 to 7.5, hey, if you're moving this weight at like 5.1, 5.2, back down to 5.1, you probably don't need to add 25 pounds to it. It's not, you're going to get a red rep. And the kids know that. So they're pretty good with it. They know if I'm into a set and I get a couple red reps and I'm pretty far, like if I'm right there at it, hey, finish the set, let's roll. But if I'm much under the zone, then hey, let's rack it. Let's take, depending on how far the gap is, let's take 10 off. Let's get back in it. Let's get our sets away. It really minimizes our wasted training time to where, you got kids just over here, getting pinned. And it's, before we had those, it was percentage based. Hey, I tried it all, tried RPE, tried the, percents, and nothing was foolproof. I mean, the kids are going to come in there, they're going to throw a ton of weight on there, and you're going to have to go over there and pull it off of them, chew them out. Why'd you do that? All that kind of stuff. So, our kids have done a really good job with it and being able to use it for that. And then, the two metrics that we track, once again, going back to our head coach, I don't have to justify my job by 3 lift max total.
Love that.
I don't have to go in and say, hey, this kid put on this many pounds in his squat and his bench and is clean. And we're not even married to those exercises. I mean, so our two that we look at is power and peak power, time to peak power. So, for us, it's big because we get to go in there and I kind of know like, hey, this is where we should be, and I can watch it throughout the off season, throughout the year, and even compare it to where we were last year. Hey, are we in a good spot? Are we about where we were this time last year, or are we above it, or are we behind? Do we need to adjust something? So that's big. And then, we utilize, we do RDLs and stuff like that. We'll put them on there and get some eccentric time. So, you can tell a kid all day, you can tempo them and give them 300, whatever tempo, 303 tempo. That like they're counting so fast in their head. I mean, you got to put 6-7 seconds in there for you to actually get something out of it. So being able to program that in, and when they're lowering it, it's counting it. And if they don't go down slow enough or whatever, it's hitting a little rep. So that it's awesome.
Yeah, they don't get much better than that. I mean, I agree with you. The feedback is where it first starts. I mean, intent is the driver of adaptation. So using velocity to see feedback, and then if you're a natural competitor, you're going to try to compete at that. So I believe that's number one as well. And then the auto regulation side as well. It can get tough though, like if you're dealing with a zone, because like in my opinion, if you've got a zone of, like you said, accelerative strength from 0.5 to 0.75, I mean, 0.25 meters per second range is actually pretty big. That could probably be 15 to 20 pounds for the most part for a high school kid. How do you guys get close? So do you start with a percentage-based like starting point to get the right loads? Because I know, in my experience with VBT, you can get there eventually, but sometimes you feel like you're wasting 2 and 3 sets to try to even get there if you're purely just relying on the velocity itself. But once you've got a base of data, how are you referencing where your kids start their sets?
Yeah, so we've got the training max sheets, and I say we don't max. We will spend time early on and say, hey, this is where our baseline is, and it's rep related. We're not going in there 1 rep max and anything like that. Like our kids aren't technically sound enough to do that. And we've got some really good football players who can play Division I football. They're not lifters. And I mean that's part of our job is get them sound doing that. They're not ready to go in there and hit a 1 rep. So they kind of know where they are on all the lifts, and we have a sheet that's on a magnet up there. They can pull it down real quick. Hey, the check is 40%, about 50%, 60%. So if you looked at our workout that's posted up, you would think we're a liar as far as we don't use percents, because we do. We just use them as a guide.
Yeah.
And we tell our guys that, like, hey, this is about what you want to have on there. Now it's your job. What is the perch telling you? What is the data that you're getting back? Do you need to add? Is that about where we are today? Or, if you're popping golds and we're above the zone, hey, add weight, let's roll. If not, hey, let's take it back down. I'm not worried about it. Your 70%, today was not your 70% another day. So we're fine. Let's just meet you where you are and let's roll. But yeah, we use percentages as a guide.
Love that. I do too. I think that it's a great marriage if you can, pair it up the right way, because they do have a correlation,
Yep.
but they're not. That's the interesting part about percentages with velocity, though, is that like I found out, when I first started with this, I was thinking it was literally a linear equation, like from like a 1/0 r squared. So, if you do this, that means this number's this. If you're this velocity that correlates with 60%, that's what it's going to be. Well, I found out really quickly that's not true. Like we had our right tackle, his name is Reese Baker. He's playing at Tulane now. His bench max, because we never truly focused on 1 rep maxes a whole lot. His 1 rep max on bench was 295. And you think for a Division I tackle, not benching 300 pounds, his upper body strength's not all that strong. But, at peak power, which for us is between 0.8 and 0.9 for a bench, meters per second on mean velocity. I mean, he's moving 205 to 225 at 0.8 to 0.9, which means he has the most powerful strike on the team. But even though his max strength didn't exactly show that, are you seeing something similar?
Yeah, and we have to talk. I mean, we have these conversations with our coaches sometimes too, because they come in and say, well, they're not. Yeah, well, at these other places, we were at, they were doing this weight or that weight, and I'm like, look, I get it, I understand, but we have to go back and say we're trying to develop peak power at this point of the off season. Look, peak power is developed. I know this is like kind of a wide range, but somewhere in that 47 to 63% range in that area, that's where we're going to see peak power. Not when they have 90% of that's a completely different thing. That we will train, we'll put heavy, we'll load them up at certain times, but and you have to explain that to the players too, because they'll want to come in there. Say if we're in light accelerative zone for that week, they'll want to come in there and max out. And you do have to watch them, because they'll just keep adding weight. Well, coach, I can do it. Hey, I know you can do it. That's not what we're talking about right now. Get in the zone, stay in the zone. This is what we're training this week. This is the quality that we're training this week. This is what we're trying to get out of it. So our kid, we're 2 years in. We don't fight that as much, but you still have a kid who's like, well, I can put more on the squat than this. I get it. I know you can't. I'm not watching it today.
No doubt. So, hey, I'm curious because you guys got some crazy good football players, man. Like you guys deal with some high caliber football players, both when you were at Grayson, I'm sure you know Joe Stakowski, who's over at Grayson now, is a really good
Yep.
friend of mine. Man, you guys, when you talk about high level players, you guys got them. So when you talk about strength and conditioning for like assessing the ability of a player, obviously we're not talking about, we're talking about physical qualities, okay, not necessarily being super skilled in IQ, that side on the field. But you've been doing this long enough to see patterns of certain physical qualities, whether that's strength levels, speed levels, power levels, some type of body mass, size, things of that nature, verticals, whatever. When you talk about a kid that you think is going to be either a starter for you guys or possibly a college football player, are there any physical qualities that you just off the top of your head know, like, hey, I know if a kid gets in this ballpark, barring all the things on the field, kid's probably going to play college football. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm just wondering, is there anything, as far as like, hey, I know if our kid runs this, if he's this, if he jumps this, if he has a peak power number of this, more than likely he's going to be a pretty good player.
Yeah, I mean, we actually had this conversation at the AFCA with some of the NFL sports scientists. I was like, hey, I know like my Cat 1 units are giving me this from an acceleration standpoint. You're telling me that your NFL guys are getting this. What I'm telling you is more. I know my kids are not doing more than your guys are doing, but it's consistent. If it's wrong, it's consistent. So I kind of still know a number with that. We're out on the field, see a lot of our guys when they can get over 6 meters per second on an acceleration, can decelerate at the same rate. Those are typically pretty good players. Pretty good athletes.
Gotcha.
So we feel good about that. I mean, if you can get a high school kid running over 20 miles an hour, feel pretty good about that. Are they going to do that in the game? Probably not. But, if they have the ability to run up 20 miles an hour and decelerate at 6 meters per second, we feel pretty good about it. As far as in the weight room, I'm not looking at maxes. I'm looking at, how much power are we producing? And really, like, I started looking at the unilateral work. So when we're doing, we spend a lot of time on our skill in mid doing a ton of unilateral work. If I see guys that are putting 300 plus on their back at a split squat and we're moving that at 0.70 higher, okay, I've got a pretty explosive kid, right? Like this guy's gonna be special. Our starting running back last year, Gavin Hall, that's at Furman now. I mean, I've seen him put 405, 435 on his back on a split squat, moving it at 0.6, 0.64 meters per second. I mean, one of the more explosive kids I've coached.
Right.
So yeah, there's things, and it's really it's almost an eye test when you're watching these guys. They just move different. What they're able to do, they're more twitchy, they're more explosive. They do develop more power. Not always the strongest guys in the room though. Some of them are, especially the bigs. We've had some OLDO guys, not necessarily the tackles. I mean, we do. Alex Payne for us, he's going to go to North Carolina and play football next year. 6'6", 280, long arms. Not going to throw up a ton of weight on the bench.
Right.
And even squat. He's got a long distance to go, but if you put him in some type of Olympic movement, you see really quick that his pop's a little different. So a lot of it's that, looking at their power output on the perch and just watching them move. I mean, you see so many of them come through, and you see the ones that, and you can really start categorizing, hey, this is kind of what I see out of our, Division II players, our FCS guys, our P4 guys, Group of 5, whatever. And you can just watch them move. And now there's some things you just can't coach. They just come in with, and we just try to maximize it.
Yeah, no doubt. And does it help? Because I heard this. A buddy of mine, his name's Ty Burt. He's a strength coach. Now he's actually up here in Huntsville now at Athens High School. But he told me this one day and said, like, your games aren't won with your top 10 players. Your games are won player 11 through 45, like your middle of the ground guys.
No doubt.
You're really good high school players. Does those type of metrics help raise that floor? Because they're like, man, like I'm seeing those, even though that they might not be a college football player, but they're a dang good high school football player, and they're competing and just trying to maximize their potential. Now that you've got all those metrics, right? Like all of those metrics that are showing, hey, this is what these guys that are going on to play college football now can do in these areas. You're trying everything possible to try to reach that. Are you seeing that also bring your floor up as well?
No doubt. Yeah. I'll bring them in early in the offseason too. We'll talk and we'll meet individually. It takes me a while. I catch them. Hey, when you transition, you got a lunch period, you got something, you can get away. I'll try to catch them during the day and we'll sit down with these guys and hey, what are your goals? Where you want to go? And I kind of open up the floor to them for them to tell me where they want to go. And, when they do say, hey, I want to go play Division I football, I want to go play college football, whatever that may be. Okay, well, let's look at where you're at, and we'll pull I'll pull their profile up on Perch. We'll pull their catapult data up. We'll talk about, hey, everything down to work ethic and what they do in the weight room and stuff like that. And we'll compare it like, hey, this guy, for us, you saw him, you played with him. You're watching him on TV now on Saturdays. This is what he did. This is where he was. It's not only him, here's the other guy that's doing it as well. And those are conversations like, we got Champ Thompson at Clemson that's playing defensive line at Clemson. Nick Taylor at App State, Coach Niblett's son, Scott Niblett over Shorter. We've got all kind of levels, especially within the last year, that we can show these guys and say, hey, this is what they did. This is where they were. This is where you got to get, because, there's a disconnect there. I think sometimes everybody thinks, I should, why are the colleges, when they're coming in the spring to watch, why are they not talking to me? All this was like, hey, this is realistically, this is where you got to be, because noticing more and more too, especially the bigger schools, when they're coming in, they're not asking 40 times and bench maxes and combine numbers, but they want to see data, especially the ones you can tell that the head coach has really bought into the data, and they have a good performance staff there that follows and stuff. I've sat there with multiple P4 schools pulling practice data up on these guys and showing them what these guys can do, because they're kind of gauging it versus what they're seeing. And hey, is this guy kind of close? Can we get him to what we're seeing out of our players? And we tell our guys that, like, look, there's a responsibility. This stuff's cool to have. There's a responsibility with it. When the college coach comes in and sits down, I can't tell him, no, Mark, we're not going to look at this. It's open, it's there, and we'll light a fire and create the buy-in a little quicker too. It's like, look, your stuff's got to be at this point, because when the coaches come in and ask about it and they're going to see it, that conversation will stop real quick if it's not at a certain point.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. There's nothing better than when you can be matter of fact with your players. There's no wondering, no gray area. It is what it is. Now we can go to work, which I think is amazing. You guys are doing an awesome job.
And that standard's really set with Coach Neville. He talks about it all the time, like high truth, high love. We tell guys high truth, high love. We love you guys to death. We're obviously trying to give you every resource imaginable to be successful. Our doors are always open. You have our phone numbers, like whatever you need. But we're going to tell you the truth, because, us telling, patting you on the back, telling you, hey, man, good job, dude. And we're not going to get anywhere. Like, we're going to tell you exactly where you need to be, where you are right now, how we're going to get there. And, they don't always like those conversations, but, they do after the 4 years, and they go off and they do get an opportunity to go play college football. Most of them come back and it's like, yeah, I see what you're talking about now.
Right. So there's two questions left I really want to ask you, just from, your philosophy, your coaching standpoint. Pretty simple questions. The first one is, what is something you've changed your mind on over the course of your career?
A lot.
Give me one going then.
Man, it's funny to go back and look at those old programs from 5 or 10 years ago when we didn't have all this stuff and we were guessing. I think, the biggest was training volume. It does not take what, at least for me, I used to think it took to get there. It was, coming up at the time we did, it was all about, do more. We obviously got a lot better with our conditioning and how we condition, and making the conditioning mimic a little more what they're seeing on the field, and understanding energy systems and that kind of stuff. But really, just from a training volume, a big one was when we got here was working out 2 days a week in season. It was like, when we were talking about it, and, coach was like, hey, I've always done 2 days a week and all this, there was a part of me that was like, oh, I don't know if we can get all that in. And, 2 days, I don't know, I've been at places that wanted to work out 4 days a week and would work out on game day. But seeing the data, seeing where we were, was like, yeah, it don't take as much as we thought. So probably, training volume, practice volume, all that. Just making sure you're intentional about what you're doing, the intent's there for the kids. And as long as it's high energy, high effort, high intensity, all that, then we're going to be fine.
Well, I feel like coaches have this tendency of having a sword to fall on. If something's not working out, I know we worked hard, right? I know we got after it. I know that if anything, we're gonna outwork everybody, even though it might have been not very smart work.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's hard to commit to saying, hey, we're gonna do less but it's going to be better. Because what if it doesn't work out? You don't have that sword to fall on anymore.
I mean, that was a scary part of my job. Not here because, Coach Dub was so bought in and he understands it. But, other places I've been at, when you're using GPS, there's not a lot of schools using GPS, and you're taking this data in here saying, hey, I think we're doing a little too much right here. We need to back it down. So, well, if we get beat Friday night, then I'm going to be out of a job.
Yeah.
So definitely nerve-wracking. But also, like I said, there's just so much data coming in, and I mean, you can see it. It really takes the guesswork out. I mean, and now it's easier now because there's a lot of schools doing. There's a lot of information out there. Some of the bigger schools. I know Coach Blue over Alabama. They do a phenomenal job. It's kind of there. The blueprint's there. So it's not as big of an argument anymore.
Right. And last thing here is, what is something you're currently trying to learn more or add in, sharpen your sword on? Like what's on Coach Mathis's mind of, hey, this is the next thing I'm trying to figure out?
Yeah, I think it's always just diving deeper into taking the data from our catapult, taking the data from our perch system. And the first thing is, is there anything that we can pinpoint to mitigate these scary injuries? I say the scary injuries, like at the end of the day, if we can't keep our dudes on the field, no matter who we have.
Right.
And that was the big thing for the decel index, is like, what metrics are out there that we don't fully understand how to utilize yet, fully understand how to implement, that can keep our guys healthier, especially, we're talking soft tissue stuff, hamstrings, ACLs, that type stuff. And it's just, I mean, you're digging into that stuff every day. What am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? And then I think for us too, when you do get away from the bench clean squat model that's been there forever, once again, you're kind of getting out on a limb with, coaches that have seen, that's all they've ever seen is bench clean squat. Everything's built around that. And you start getting into, okay, we're going to do a lot of different types of exercises. It's how do we marry these into a system? And we've got a good idea of what that looks like now, but you're always trying to refine it. And, are we exposing them too much to the bilateral back squat, to where we're get the quad and the hamstring firing at the same time, and were we doing too much cleaning from the floor and stuff like that? And we want to do the right amount of it to build a strength base up, but we also need to get the unilateral work in. And if we do that, we don't want to do it just as a whole, because the closer we get in the ball with the OLDL, we do need a little more bilateral work. The further away from the ball we get, we need a little more unilateral work. So how do we marry it all as a system? Once we're in these zones, what are the best exercises? That's one thing we always talk about, like exercise. We're not married to exercise. Exercise are tools. So what are the best tools that we can use from an exercise selection standpoint within the zones to get where we need to go? So I think that's just an ongoing conversation we have. It's like, we like the data, but what can we do better? How can we change some stuff up here and there? And that's daily conversations in the office.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I appreciate you spending time out of your day to come hang out with me, and I definitely learned a lot. I know you guys are running a very high level operation there. If any coaches listen to this and want to reach out to you, maybe have more questions, follow-up questions based off what they heard here, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can get me on Twitter at Mathis Strength. I think maybe _strength. And then, I'm open, phone conversations, whatever. My cell phone number is 770-561-1794. Shoot me a text. We'll jump on a call. I love to talk shop and hear from other guys. And that's the big thing too. I want to hear from other guys, because then you never know what I do. You're going to pick up that comes in and solves a problem in your own program.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
On today's episode of Inside the Numbers Sports Performance Podcast, we have Coach Nate Mathis. He is the director of optimal performance at Gainesville High School in Gainesville, Georgia. He's been there for 2 years now, working primarily with football, running all of their sports science, and overseeing the optimal performance department, along with director of strength conditioning coach Taylor Williams. He has previous stops as the director of strength conditioning at Grayson High School in Georgia, Walker Valley High School in Tennessee, and Jefferson High School in Florida. He also has experience working in the SEC as a strength conditioning intern at Ole Miss. Today's episode was basically a snapshot of how Gainesville High School football operates like a Power 4 football program. They have unbelievable facilities and unbelievable resources and do things at a crazy high level. In this episode, you can listen to Nate go over their philosophy of training and usage of their technology, such as their catapult vector systems and their perch camera-based barbell velocity tracking units. Let's welcome to the show, Coach Nate Mathis.